Welcome back to Loose Frame Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martin-Olich, and joining me as always,
I'm Hillary Weber. And I'm Jessie Brooke.
Welcome, ladies. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
I am wonderful. We have a great show coming up today. We're going to get right into it. But first, who are we having today?
Today we have Rachel Paulson, an actor and director. And Jessie, do you want to tell us a little bit about why she's here today?
Sure, yeah. Rachel Paulson and her sister Sarah were born here in Tampa Bay. They grew up here. She'll talk a little bit about how she went to Blake High School. What is their mascot?
Is it a bee?
Go Bees. Go Blake High School.
Yeah.
We'll follow up with that, in the comments. But yeah, so she moved to LA to pursue filmmaking full time over there. So she is an LA resident, but she is coming back home to Tampa Bay to direct her first feature film called Making Estrangements. And that's where our office got connected with her.
And we're always excited when a filmmaker, especially when this left has decided to come back to film something here. It's going to be a great project shooting later in the year, which we'll get to during the conversation. But with that, we're going to turn it over to our interview with Rachel Paulson. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Loose Frame Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martin-Olich, and joining me now is writer, director, actor, Rachel Paulson. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for coming here today, and welcome back to Tampa Bay. You grew up here originally, so let's start there. It's a little bit of bio.
Okay.
You weren't born here, or you were born here.
I was born here.
You were born here. You were actually a true Tampa Bay native.
Yes. What do they call it? Like they used to call it in high school a tampon.
A tampon?
Yeah.
What is it? Tampano?
Tampanion?
I forget what it is.
Tampion? I don't know.
There is a viewer who's going to get mad that I said that now. He calls in every time if I mispronounce it. But so that's cool. I think you might be the first person we've ever actually interviewed that was like actually born here.
Wait, really?
Grew up here. Yeah. A lot of Tampa Bay residents, but not someone who's actually was born here.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how someone who was born in St. Pete, of all places, ended up in the movie industry.
Well, you can thank my sisters for that. We were all born here. Don't let them fool you. They like to pretend they were born in New York, but we were all born in Tampa. And I think, I just like had that acting bug when I was like young. They were both kind of in LA already doing it. And then when I graduated high school, I was kind of like, do I go to college? Do I go to LA? Like, what do I do? And to me, it made the most sense to go there. I had family there. But I've been doing it. I went to Blake here.
Yeah.
So I had already been like integrated kind of into that in this area. And then I just moved out there, and I guess the rest is history.
That's awesome. And Blake is still known as sort of like the theater magnet school here in town. So was it purely from your sister? We should say your sister is Sarah Paulson.
Yes.
But was there pressure from your parents? How did they get the acting bug?
I don't know. None of our parents are in, because they have a different mom and we have the same dad, and then there's my mom, but none of our parents are in the industry at all. So and all three of us are like do it in some capacity. Like my other sister's a casting director. And so like all of us are in the industry, and like, no, I literally don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, it's like Sarah had it, and then it was like, oh, I'm going to give it to Liz, and then I'm going to give it to Rachel, and then now we all have it. But it was weird. I don't know. I have no idea.
Your personality, I think, lends itself to doing that.
Yeah,
though.
here we are. Here we are.
So talk a little bit about, I guess, so you grew up in St. Pete. So you
Tampa. I grew up in
Tampa Bay. Okay. So you were here till you're 17, right?
I was here till I was like 18, then I came back for a little bit, and then I went back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've transitioned to the West Coast now,
yes,
and
now
you're back to Tampa. But let's keep it in the early part of your life. What was moving out to LA and that first acting audition? Like, what was that like? Especially from someone who grew up in St. Pete, right?
God,
or Tampa. I'm sorry.
Probably not good. I'll tell you that. I'm pretty sure I didn't book it. That's for sure. It was a while ago, so I don't remember the exact logistics, but I know that like something that I always say is like auditioning is so strange. It's such a different thing from like being on set or doing a play or like doing any of those things. And I think we had like practiced some of it in high school, but it was like play auditions, so it was a little bit different. I remember I can just tell you a funny early audition. I don't know the first one. A funny early audition story. So I had this friend who like called me in for his show, and I was probably like in my early 20s, which was at this point quite a long time ago. And I was on the Warner Brothers lot. Like, in LA, they'll have like lots where all the stuff shoots. And I had this for some reason I had this backpack with me. I don't know why I had it. And there was a pin on the backpack, and I went to close it and I sliced my finger. Ooh. Like, I'm talking about like gushing down my hand. And I was like, oh, and I have this like gushing hand and I had to run to the medic on the lot. They're like, oh, we can't treat it because you didn't do it on like the set. You did it with like your own personal property and you're not like working here. And I was like,
I'm bleeding. Like, oh,
I was like, I'm bleeding. So I'm like wrapping like paper towels around it. I go into the audition, and the woman's like, oh my gosh, I'm happy that you're okay. Like the one running the audition. And then I proceed to tell her how I got the audition, and I used my friend's wrong name because I was so nervous. I called him like Michael and his name was like Sean.
Oh no.
And it was not good. And then he called me. He was like, I heard what happened at your audition. Needless to say, we are no longer friends, and he never called me in again.
Oh, no.
So that happened.
Oh, you blew the audition, and you're sitting there bleeding out.
I was literally, I had like a little Band-Aid on. Like the woman at the medic place was like, I can give you like a little Band-Aid. And I was like, okay. And it was like a gash. It was pretty bad. I'm surprised I don't have a scar, honestly. Yeah.
That might be the most horrific casting experience I've heard yet.
It was not ideal. It was not ideal, I would say. Yeah.
So what was the biggest difference transitioning from Tampa to LA? Had to be more than the weather. I mean.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Weather was a big one, I think. Secondly, it's like quite a culture shock in a way, in a good way, I feel like. Something that I always say about LA is like any job in the whole world, especially the industry that you can think of, you can do it there.
Yeah.
Like anything in the world. Like you want to be the grip on, a reality show. You want to do producing for a web series. You want to do whatever it is, you can do it in that city. And I think it's just like really, there's so many opportunities there. And I think the cost of living was quite a transition because the cost of living there is astronomical. I was talking to my friend who still lives here. She was telling me how much her mortgage is. And I was like, what? I was like, I pay double that, almost triple that for a 800 square foot apartment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Shocking.
Shocking. It's really shocking.
I think there's some parity. It's getting closer anyway as the economy sort of shakes itself out, and Tampa's getting more and more expensive every day.
Tampa's gotten really cool. When I lived here, Tampa was not cool.
You're absolutely right. So I won't date either of us, but even going back 10 years ago, there was only a couple of buildings downtown. And the last, I think, commercial tower that had been built was in the early 80s, right? So, Tampa was a dead city for all intents and purposes up until a couple of years ago, and then it suddenly exploded.
What happened?
Money. Yeah. So it was Jeff Vinnick, who owns the Lightning, and Bill Gates, of all people.
Oh, my gosh.
So Jeff Vinnick was Bill Gates's hedge fund manager.
Okay.
And he also, I think, took care of his family foundation at the time. And he's like, we should really invest in Tampa. Like, I'm investing in the Lightning. You should come here too. And they bought up most of downtown, and they've transformed it. It's absolutely insane. Phase 1 has already been built out, and they're starting on phase 2.
It's crazy.
But 10 years from now, there's going to be 3 times the size of the buildings we have down here right now, and it's just going to stretch to the horizon. So it's really transitioning to be very, very cool. You mentioned you can go to LA and find a job no matter what you want to do.
Yeah.
But film is one of those passions, I think, where there's a lot of jobs in this world. You can grind out 9 to 5. You can just get it done, and you can sort of hate your day, but you're still doing it for the paycheck. I don't find, and you might disagree, that film is one of those things you can do that because it'll eat you alive.
Oh,
you really have to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about your passion for doing it. You just told us a horrific story where you're bleeding out, but you still came back and did it again.
Yeah.
So what is that love of acting?
God,
or just film in general?
It's really just, I just love it so much. And I think I always tell people, like, if you don't truly have like a desire, like such a burning desire to do this, like do something else because it will eat you alive and it will kill you. And I remember my sister told me this thing when I was like before I moved to LA, like right before I got into high school. She was like, if you can do something else, do it. And I always was like, what does that mean? And then as I got into the industry, I was like, oh, like if you can, like, oh, okay, now I get it.
If you're qualified at doing anything else.
Or if you feel like you would be, like for me, like I would just be so miserable. Like I could probably be making much more money doing something else right now, but I just would be so miserable And I think I don't know. I just can't stop. It's like a bad toxic relationship. It's like it is. It's like abusive. It's like, here you go. I'm going to beat you down. Okay, well, now I'm back. Oh, I'm going to do it again. Now I'm back. You know, it's like but there's some beautiful things about the industry too that are so fulfilling. And like, I know that a lot of actors and actresses, writers, directors, like changed my life when I was younger, even not, especially being in the LGBTQ community as well. Like, you know, even if it wasn't like, oh my God, I love this film. It was just like the story were stories that I was like yearning to find and to be that, you know, that person for someone, I think is extremely important.
Let's stay on that thread there.
Yeah.
What was a particular project or actor, director, writer, someone that you really looked at and said, wow, like this is impressionable on me and it's really changed my trajectory?
Yeah, I think this is a very classic answer. I'm sure a lot of people have this answer, but I think Meryl Streep did that to me when I was younger. Weirdly, Angelina Jolie did that to me when I was younger, just because I think she took such risks in her acting career and like the movies that she did. And I think there was like talk in the early 2000s that she was also like dating women. And so that was like there wasn't a lot of that going on at that point. So I think she was so kind of scary, but like so talented and so good. So I think she really did that for me. And then directors, I mean, like the classics, you know, Quentin Tarantino was such an amazing person for me. You know, I now love Diablo Cody. I think I've got like so many, I love her so much. She was like reading this pilot that I'm doing and I like fell to the ground. She ended up not being a showrunner on it because she had something else, but she like said amazing things about it. And I was like, what? I've literally been a fan of yours since like, you know, I was a child. So there's just so many stories that I think people long for that they don't get in their lives. And I think that that's what film and TV ends up doing for people. And that's why it becomes such an amazing thing for people to do that really love it. Yeah.
Is there an alternate timeline where Rachel Paulson is a firefighter, doctor, lawyer, or this was what you were always going to do?
God, I hope not.
I'm just
I would be a great lawyer, I feel like.
Yeah?
I could really negotiate this. Can I curse?
Yes, you sure.
Okay. I could really negotiate the shit out of something, I feel like. I would be a good lawyer. For a while,
But there was never like interest, like, I want to be a paleontologist or something.
That is so weird that you said that. I was literally about to be like, there was an archaeological moment in my life.
Because we all saw Indiana Jones growing up. So
or Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park, that one too. Yeah.
Like, who doesn't want to be Ellie Stratford or whatever her name was? Like, Laura Dern's character. I was like, oh my God, she's amazing.
And then you find out there's a lot of science involved. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, and math. And then I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough for that. I can't do. But yeah, there was a marine biology moment. There was an archaeological moment. Otherwise, I think that was really it. And that was when I was pretty young. Yeah. Like I was and then to be honest, I didn't know until my sister did it that this was something that you could actually do as a career. You know, I think it was more like you go to school for these things and you like do plays. Yeah. Right. And I think when Sarah did it, I was like, oh, this can be like an actual thing that you can do.
That's interesting. You're not the first person to said the exact same thing. Yeah. It's like, you know, we consume media and we watch it and we go to a theater, but you never really think like someone actually made this. Yeah. Like someone, this is their job every day. Yeah. So that's very cool you discovered that. Looking back at your trajectory to where you are right now, have you always been in the acting through line, or have you dabbled in like writing or directing, or maybe I want to get behind the camera and be a DP, or just this is solely your focused?
It's interesting because when I first started out, my sole focus was acting, again, because that's all that I thought, you know, was available. And then as I started to learn more and be on set more and figure out that there's more roles involved, and like same thing that you're saying, it's like, oh, somebody directs, somebody lights this, someone DPs this. Yeah. And now I'm writing projects all over the place, and I've just directed a short that we finished in March that's actually playing at
Sunscreen Film Festival. Yeah.
Yes. So that's exciting. So yeah, I'm doing, you know, other than directing, writing, acting, I'm not, and then I'm like forced to produce, which I absolutely hate. Other than those four things, I don't think, you know, I would be interested in like behind the scenes any other way, really. Yep. But nowadays, you really just can't. I mean, even the big actors, like they're doing a bunch of other stuff. It's like now, like back in the day, you could just be an actor and that would be successful and you could, you know, take that route. But nowadays they're producing, executive producing, writing, they're like, you know, directing.
Do you think that's because they're not finding the projects that they want to work on in that part of their career, so they're just going to do it themselves?
Yes. That's why I did it. Yeah. You know, and I think that was like where I was going to get to next is like, you know, I think I was finding also that even my last name definitely helps me a lot, but even with that, you know, I was finding that I wasn't getting the roles that I wanted to get. So I was like, this, I'm just going to write them for myself. so I started, and I did in 2014. I had a short that got into Cannes, and then I was like the lead in it, and then obviously the other short that I just directed is I'm also in, and then I've got which I'm sure we'll talk about, a feature that is coming in the fall that I'm also in, so that I wrote. So I think that's really part of the reason why people start doing it. And then I think it becomes, as a director, it's just like, I think as an actor, the obvious next step is directing, just because there's so many there's two different kinds of directors. It's like a technical director or an actor's director, right? So I think when you're acting, it's like you can learn the technical stuff. I think it's hard to learn
the acting side.
Part. Yeah.
So, I'll mention like GLAAD, but a lot of LGBTQ organizations do like a yearly rating on the progress of different industries. And film, believe it or not, just film and digital media at large, is always at the bottom of the list, which is surprising by a lot of people, right? Because people out on the outside looking in are like, oh no, there's a lot of LGBTQ actors, but it's really not represented on crews. It's really not represented in most casts. It's really not represented in the content. Talk a little about that struggle, and do you see any changes? Or you have to be your agent of own change?
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of change it on your own, I think. I have seen some shifts toward the positive in the last like 5 years, I think. But yeah, I don't know why that is. It's strange, because you would think that in the world of the arts that would be quite leaning, right? In that world. But I don't know why. It's just like, why are LGBTQ movies so bad? Also, there's so many, just like, sorry for anyone out there who's made one that's not good, but it's just like, they're just not good.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the issue, is that a lot of these stories are the same stories that have been told 1,000 times, and people are getting sick of watching coming out stories about, this straight girl who then becomes gay and then falls in love with a woman. Like, it's always the same story, right? So I think that that's something that I try to do to change, is like make different stories, because, and I also try to do, it's not necessarily about being queer or being in the LGBTQ space. It's just a story, and then those people happen to be in that space. And I think that will help to push it towards mainstream, or push it to be better.
That's really interesting. I think you can say the same thing about sort of any niche filmmaking, if I can say it that way, where all they're doing is preaching to the choir at some point, and they're not trying to tell a good story that happens to be about these things. It's about that one thing, right?
Coming out of we're asking for acceptance, so why don't we just tell stories that are normal stories, and the characters just happen to be gay? I'm
really glad you said that, because that is something that bothers me when you see these niche films, especially because I do a lot of programming for festivals, and you see a lot of niche content. It's like, who is this audience for? Like, you made it for you and your 3 friends. Like, you're not telling a story at that point. You made a home video.
Right.
So that's always frustrating. Since you brought that up, and making your own content and really telling the story that you want to tell, let's talk a little bit about Making Estrangements, which is your upcoming film. So let's start with the elevator pitch for it. So give us the log line.
Oh gosh, the elevator pitch. Okay, so basically, 2 boy and girl, 2 siblings. This isn't the official log line, so I'm just kind of riffing here. So brother and sister basically fell in love with the same girl in high school, both slept with her, and then when she's diagnosed, they moved away. Then when she's diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, they have to come back. They've been estranged since that happened, and the girl who is sick thinks that only my brother is coming, my brother thinks only he's coming, and then I think I'm only coming. So when we get there, it's an explosion of, oh shit, why are you here? Kind of thing.
And where did that story come from?
Honestly, it started, so Will Sterling, who is the co-writer and plays my brother in the movie, he had an interesting story. I'm not sure if he would want me talking about this, but I'm going to talk about it. So sorry, Will. He came out as queer much later in life, after he was like married to a like cis woman, which was interesting. And so originally I wanted to write that story, because I was like, that's a new story that like we haven't heard a lot about. And then it kind of morphed into this story of and there is a part of that in there, but it kind of morphed into this, because I was like, how would my character play a role in this? And then it turned out being like so many dynamic complications between family members, and like, things that happened in the past, and then they like just stop talking, and communication is always so bad between people, and they're just like, it's fine, like we're fine. And so that's kind of where it came from. But originally we wanted to tell that story, and then it morphed into this kind of other thing.
And I think just in everyone's life, being confronted with mortality, whether it's your own or someone else's, is really something that can either bring people together or tear people apart.
Right. In this case, it brings us together. I think, her the character's final wish is for us to like basically the reason she did what she did is because she wants us to like figure out our shit before she like that's her dying wish basically.
So you're out in LA. You could have made this movie anywhere.
It's true.
Why bring it back to Tampa Bay?
You know, it's interesting that you say that. So we wanted somewhere where it like wasn't Los Angeles, right? First of all, it's very expensive to shoot there. Second of all, it's so super cliche because everybody shoots in LA, right? So we were kind of like, he's from California, so it didn't really make sense because we were like, all right. And then he was like, where are you from? And I was like, Tampa. He was like, oh my God, Tampa. And I was like, it's going to be so good. And I just felt like it was such a destination to come back to. And I don't have this anymore, but I'm going to be honest. I had some animosity towards the area when I was younger, just because it was like, I had some trauma here, right? And so I was like, that'll be interesting for my character to have to come back to this place. And then it morphed into this thing again where like now it's like Tampa's like a character in this movie. It like becomes, it's like Will, Rachel, and Tampa. It's like those are the like trifecta of what this is. And it just becomes such a cool like thing. But I really did it because I was from here. And I thought it would be an interesting kind of connection to the character that I'm playing to kind of have this sort of like love-hate relationship for this part of town. And what ends up happening, which is crazy, is my character stays in Tampa in the movie. Like she's like, I'm going to live here.
It's a ringing endorsement. I'll take that.
Yeah.
So have you ever, I'm curious now, have you ever gone back to Blake and walked the campus or talked to the students?
No, but I should.
You should.
I don't even know who I would contact to do that, honestly.
I think there's someone from Blake coming to meet me today, actually.
Really?
Yeah, we're donating a bunch of equipment to them.
Wait, tell them because I would love to come.
I could arrange that. I would love to see you go back and talk to the high school you grew up in.
Literally, I'm here till the 29th, Blake. Like, I will literally, I would like love to do that. And I've thought about it before. I just like, I didn't really know who to contact or like, I think it feels like a little weird to be like, hi, I used to go there. I want to speak. Like, I'd rather have them be like, do you want to speak here?
Yeah. But how often does someone go to a high school and they're like, oh, there's actually a graduate who ended up doing something that I want to do?
Honestly, a lot of people from Blake did.
Yeah. Well, that's a good endorsement.
Yeah. There's a lot of Blake people that are doing well.
So what would looking back, what would you tell yourself if you had to give yourself advice, and then what would you just tell a student aspiring?
Never stop, because the industry will beat you down and it will kill you and it will be hard to you. But I think you have to just keep going, because I think what separates people that are successful and people that aren't, besides the fact that talent plays a little role, is just the tenacity of not giving up. And being tenacious and being, like a lot of people, like there's this crazy statistic about people that move to Los Angeles and make it for a year and then turn around and come back.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, just every time that you get kicked down, like just get back up and do it again. Because I promise you, eventually you'll be like, oh my God, this industry's crazy. Now I'm successful. It's just like, it's almost like it's trying you, and seeing if you, because it's a very hard industry, but the rewards are extremely fulfilling. Right. So I think it's like, can you handle this? Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you all this shit and then let's figure out if you can do it. And then if you come back, then you're good. So I would say just like never stop. Like, I know that's so cliche, but just like don't give up. Like keep going, because eventually it will.
Yeah.
I think
it's something people need to hear constantly and often.
Yeah. Because it's really hard. You want to give up and you want to say, I just can't do this. But if you just keep going, something will happen. I think this is one of the only industries, I always say this too about this industry. I think this is one of the only industries where, if you're an accountant and you enter after college, entry level, in 10 years, you are guaranteed to be moved up in some company, whether it's the one that you're in or a better job at another company.
Yeah.
In this industry, you can start and 10 years from now, you can be basically in the same place.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and I think it's one of the only industries where that will happen. Because even if you're gaining more skills, it's like there's no guarantee that you're going to be more successful in a certain amount of time, right? So I think that you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pandemic really shifted the way movies are casted. I mean, there's less and less in person. Now it's more and more on tape.
Yes.
For better or worse,
yes,
depending on who you ask. Do you think we're at a point where people, especially particularly actors, don't need to be on the West Coast or in New York? They can sort of be anywhere within reason, and they can't be in the middle of rural nowhere, but they need to have some connection.
They can be in the middle of nowhere, I think. They can't be out of the country.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's hard. I think, Yes, I think they don't have to be in New York or LA. I think it's sometimes easier. What I found is commercials are doing, if you're like a newer actor, I think it's hard because commercials and, smaller roles are doing a lot of in-person stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you've had a couple films or you're like, I think you can basically live anywhere.
Yeah.
As long as you have the means to fly yourself in, because most of the time producer sessions or if they're casting out of LA, chances are they're not going to fly you there or put you up there.
Yeah.
Right. So if I lived here and it was a movie and I ended up casting it, they wouldn't care that I lived here. They would make me fly myself there. So I think that's the main thing is as long as you have the means to kind of do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now looking at where you're at in your career and you're on the other side of the casting table now, are you remembering back to, some of your early traumatic stories? I mean, are you less harsh perhaps when you're reading people or casting them? And would you rather have someone who can take direction well or someone who's naturally talented?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I don't know. I definitely think I'm less harsh. I'm really an actor's director, first of all. So if there's a chance, I mean, some people are just like hopeless, let's be honest. Like you're like, oh, wow, that's bad. But, wow.
I've seen a few of those.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some, but I can always see if someone's like moldable or there's potential there. I mean, I think I would rather see someone who takes direction well because the chances of you being really that naturally talented are so slim. I think it's like, there are two types of actors that like 0.001% that's like, I totally get this, and like they just like can do it. And then the other ones that are, taught actors or people that are training. I'm a taught actor. I'm not that other one. So it's, so I think I'd rather see someone who can take direction and has worked hard and has really trained and has, has really done their due diligence. I mean, obviously, if I find one of those unicorns, amazing. I actually teach acting, and one of my students is a unicorn.
Yeah.
He's like incredible. He just moved to LA when he's like 19, and he moved there when he was 18. He already booked a series regular role.
What's it like finding a talent like that, or just knowing like you're going to be a superstar someday? And I'm on the ground floor.
It was crazy. So my friend was like, it was crazy. My friend was literally like, "Hey, I have this guy. He like has never been on screen before. He's only done plays. Will you like work with him?" And I was like, "Yeah." And every time I do like my first like consultation with somebody, I have them like we like read something so that I know like their kind of level. And I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "You've never done a film?" And he was like, "No, I do plays in high school." I was like, okay, we're going to work together because here's what you're going to be a celebrity. You're going to be on so many shows. And now he is. He's, I was like, you need to not go to college. I was like, move to Los Angeles. He was like, what? I'd like talk to his parents because they were like, why don't you want him to go to college? And I was like, because he needs to go to LA now.
Yeah.
Like now.
And college is one of those things, not to tell people not to go to college, but
go to college.
Definitely go to college, kids. But it's also something that's not dependent on this industry at all.
I don't think you need it at all.
No.
I think actually it's detrimental.
In many ways, I think you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of taking direction well, is there a particular director you've worked with over the years, whether you want to name drop him or not, that just really took you aside and was like, I'm going to help you. We're going to figure this out. Like, or a piece of direction that gave you just clicked in your head immediately. It's like, wow, that was profound.
I am going to drop actually my directing partner, Julia Erringer, who will also be here because she is someone that I unfortunately have not had the pleasure of working with someone like that on the acting end, which is another reason why I went into directing because I was like, I want to be the type of director that, does do what you're saying. But Julia is just, she thinks so outside of the box when it comes to like how to get an actor to where they need to be. When we were shooting the movie that we co-directed it together, the one in Sunscreen, it's called Fire Fucking Fire. And when we were doing it, she was like, I want you to step off as the director and just be the lead actress so that like, she's like, obviously you'll still get the credits, you'll get all the things that, any decision-making things, whatever, but I want you to really be able to focus on that. And what I thought was so interesting is we did this like 4-hour rehearsal before we shot, and it was me and the other lead, and it was just like she would come up with these crazy scenarios, and we were just like in this rehearsal space just like doing all of these like crazy things, or she would like put words to like our feelings and then be like, okay, run around and like feel this feel. It was just like really cool stuff that was not what you would normally think of. And I think it really brought out the performances in us. Because then on set, she could say like, remember when we were doing like, think of the word angry or whatever. And then we would be like, oh yeah, I remember all of that stuff. So it was a really interesting way. So I'm going to champion her here for that, I think.
I've worked in enough sets where I've seen actors who really appreciate the practice and the prep, and others that just want to have that raw emotion of the day they get there and they're reading it for the first time almost cold. I definitely prefer one to the other. But is there a particular way you like to approach acting?
Yeah, so I think as far as like on set stuff, I think it really depends on the role as to what you're talking about, because I've played roles that are like so much me that I just want to be there and get raw with it. And then I've played roles where I'm like, oh, this is not me at all. I have to kind of make this person up inside my head. But usually the way that I approach acting is I try to take it by the emotions instead of the situation. So what I mean by that is like, let's say that I'm playing a 40s war nurse, right? I will not relate to any of those. The only thing about that relates to me is that I'm a woman, right? I'm not in the 40s. I'm not, I'm not a nurse. I'm not any of those things. So there's no way for me to relate to her situation. So what I do is I try to relate to what the emotions would be that she was going through. Like, a 40s war nurse is probably wanting to help people. She's probably feeling homesick. She's probably feeling sad. She's probably feeling, so I take those feelings and I'm like, what feelings do I have that are similar to that, and what are those situations? So to me, emotions look the same no matter what the situation is, right?
Yeah.
They can rise and fall. Like obviously, if you've lost someone, the sadness is going to be heavier than if you hear a sad song, right? But the emotion is ultimately going to look the same on you regardless of what the situation is. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back to auditions now. So having just heard that, where you're really internalizing and thinking something, how do you approach going into an audition cold, having no idea what the directions are, just with whatever character you built in your head for the day, not knowing whether or not that's what they're actually looking for or not?
It's interesting that you say that, because that's my hatred with self-tapes, is that when we used to come in the room, we would prep, and then they would give us a direction back, right? They would do the second read, would be like, oh, do it. That's great. Thank you. Do it this way. And now you're just kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping for the best.
You're right, because there is no feedback at that point.
There is no feedback. You just do, now
you can't even read the room.
There is no room, right? It's like, you're basically on your own, which I think is part of the reasons a lot of actors aren't booking as much, because they just don't know what to do. And I think it's like I think that they need that second read. But what I do is I just kind of say it, and how I interpret it, I always try to think of like an interesting way to take it, right? So if it's like working in casting, I think really helped me with this, because it's like there's a way that a character is written on the page, right? So it's like if she is clearly angry, I might take it where she's like flirtatious instead, right? And I don't know if it's right, but at least it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a particular project you can look back and just really enjoyed for whatever reason? Maybe it was just you're on set somewhere and you like the actors you're working with, or it's a particular director you're enjoying, or it's just the material. Like, what was a particular project you look back and say, wow, that was one of my favorite things I've ever done?
Yeah. I think I always have a really good time on set. I think I always, it's just like where I want to be. You know what I mean? So I think it's always a fun time. But I think so the co-director that I'm speaking of, Julia, I met her on this movie called Good Kisser, which is like streaming on Netflix and all of these things now, or was. I'm not sure if it's there anymore, but it was. And it was just like such a great experience. It was, such a lovely crew. It was in Seattle, so we were all like living together, and it was like we would just like hang out all the, like Julia and I were like, we would wake up every morning and like do workouts, and like, and then we had all these inside jokes, and then we became so close from that we ended up collaborating on. We're actually doing like 2 other projects now. So I think it was that set that was really like but I've been so lucky. Like I've had such great experiences on really all of the sets that I've been on.
Yeah. In looking to where you're going now, are you trying to concentrate more on directing in the future? Can you see yourself not acting anymore and just being behind the camera?
No, definitely not. I think everybody always asks me this. They're always like, even my manager was like, what do you want to do more? Do you want to write? Do you want to direct? I was like, honestly, I don't really know. I think I'm just trying to figure out like what the like wherever the universe takes me is like where it goes, right? So I want to just do all of them and see, but I don't think I'll never not act. I think that's something that's like my true passion. I think the other things kind of are just there, and I love doing them, but they kind of came from that passion for acting, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll never not act.
So your sister, someone, if she was walking down the street, people would recognize her immediately.
Yes.
Do you enjoy your anonymity? Like, I think most actors probably regret being in the limelight.
Yes. I've actually been recognized a couple of times, which is weird, because I was like, wow, you must be watching really small movies.
Good for you for watching those
Good
movies.
for you for watching those, yeah. I always say, I think it would be cool for like a couple of months.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think like people don't realize, like, and I think I've had like a little taste of it from like Instagram and like my sister's fans are crazy even with me, and I think like watching her and things like that. So I've had like by no means anywhere near what she has, but I've had like a slight slice of it, and I think like sometimes it's a little scary.
Yeah.
Like and I don't think people realize that. I think they think it's like so cool, and it's like but it's like I'm obsessed with Taylor Swift. Like that girl can do nothing. She can literally, she has to like sit in a bubble, and she has to have people like around her at all times. And like, she can't go to she doesn't go to the grocery store. She can't go to a bar. She can't go anywhere. Right. So I think people don't realize like how invading it can be. So I think it would be cool for like 2 months. And then I would be like, okay, I'm done. And like, once you're in, you can't really get out.
Yeah.
You know,
we were just at an event with John Travolta, and he had his little VIP area in the back, and there was 300 people there just with their cell phones standing. Not saying anything, just standing
like, what are you
and
going to do with
filming
that
him.
photo? I don't like. What's the point of that?
Yeah, and he's just like, good for him. He was just able to wipe it out of his brain and focus on what he was doing.
Oh my gosh,
he's been doing it for a while too. But
yeah,
it just seemed like, I would never want that.
It's just weird. It's just strange to me. I also just like I don't understand when people like wait outside of people's houses. Like, what are you planning on seeing?
Yeah.
Just for a glimpse of this human being that's walking out of their home? That's just like strange to me. I don't know. It's
I have to imagine the American Horror Story fans are probably a little
oh my
intense.
God, love you guys. They're psychotic. They're so insane. I'm like, what? Can you guys get a hobby or something? Like,
Very intense people.
They're so intense. Whoever watches that show, like, it's a great show. I understand, but it's like I'm like, you guys are intense humans. And they're always like, it's also just like, they always ask me, they're always like, can you do this for me? And I'm like, you guys, I'm not getting anything to anybody anywhere. Yeah. That's a little scary. Don't ask me those things. I thank you for being a fan, but like, it's a little.
So let's flip the card now. Is there, maybe not standing out in front of their house, but
I would never.
Is there an actor, actress, or a celebrity that you've just followed their career?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Yes, I'm obsessed with her. She is the only person I think that if I saw, because like when I was younger, I was like around a lot of celebrities, because like basically becoming an adult in Los Angeles, it's like you see them at the grocery store, you see them like driving in their Mercedes next to your car, like in LA, so I think the only person or Gwen Stefani, I think I would freak out if I saw Gwen Stefani also.
Did she just play Coachella?
Yes, yeah. And I'm so upset I didn't go. They no doubt just got back together. Like if they don't do a tour, I'm going to lose my mind. I need a tour. I
heard the performance was amazing.
It was. I've been watching it all week. Yes, I think if I saw Taylor Swift, I would be like, I think I would not know what to do. I would go. But she's just like this, like, I don't know. There's something, she's like this like magnetic situation. I don't know what's going on with her.
It's like the Beatles.
Yeah, if I saw the Beatles,
for a different generation. Yeah.
If I saw the Beatles, I would be more freaked out because half of them are dead. So I think I would be like, "What's going on here?" But I think as far as actors, one time I saw Angelina Jolie at a Benihana in Los Angeles when I was like much younger.
And no one in my audience knows what a Benihana is, but Steve Aoki's father owned Benihana. It's a hibachi place.
Well, it's like Arigatos, right? They have those here. Don't they have Arigatos here? Yeah, or they did. I think they're closed. Yeah, but Benihana's is like the West Coast Arigatos. And she was there, and I was with my sister at the time, and she was like, "Don't go up to her," because like people, like celebrities, hate when people like she's like eating, like don't go up to her. And then I was like, I have to. I love her so much, and I didn't go up to her. And then she was in the bathroom with me. We were alone in the bathroom together, and I like not like that, but like we were alone in the bathroom of Benihana.
Breaking news right now. I'm
Breaking
selling that
news.
to TMZ.
Rachel Paulson and Angelina Jolie in the bathroom of Benihana. No, I like come out of the stall, and she's like washing her hands next to me, and I'm like, oh shit, this is my chance. And I just like turned to her and was like, you're just like such an inspiration to me. I like love you. And she was so sweet. She came back to my table, like introduced herself to like everyone I was with, like asked me where I went to high school, where I was from. So just to let you guys know, Angelina Jolie knows about Tampa and Blake High School.
Heard it here first.
Just to let you know.
That's amazing. And there's actually a lot of actors who are very magnanimous and kind with their time. There's others that, for good reason, are just jaded and tired and don't want to talk to people.
I don't know if there's ever good reason for that. Don't be mean.
Don't be mean unless someone's being mean to you.
Yeah, then that's okay. Yeah.
There's some aggressive people out there.
That's true. It's true. There's some crazy. And don't wait outside my house. I don't like that.
Don't wait outside of anybody's house.
Don't wait outside of anyone's house. Yeah. Don't do it.
That is golden rule right there.
Yeah.
Is there a particular series or movie you've seen the last year? I mean, the Academy Awards were just a couple of weeks ago. That was like, wow, Hollywood's going a different direction. I'm really enjoying this.
I loved Barbie so much. I think it was I went to see that movie because there was so much hype around it. And I'm also love Greta Gerwig, but I think she does like perfect films pretty much. But I was not expecting what that film was. I think I went in and thought it would be this like, which it was this a little bit. I thought it would be this like funny, campy, like little movie almost for kids kind of. And I was like crying by the end of it, so I wish that more films were that film. And I think that was something it was just so nice to watch that film. And people were so obsessed with it, which it was also nice. Well, rightly so, because it was quite a great film when you really watch it and when you really feel what the message is saying. Like at the end when she's like, sorry, spoiler for Barbie. At the end when she's like saying like, I want to feel. So like, I want to leave this world because it's like more, and being a human is so hard, but like she would rather feel and then have this like easy life. It's just like such a beautiful thought. And I think that was something that was really, really cool to me. I'm trying to think of series. It's a great series. This is really random. I also gave this series shit, and then I started watching it, and I was like, wow, this is good. Outer Banks is really good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I like had an audition for, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I had an audition for a version of a spinoff of that. I don't know if I should say that, but I'm gonna. And I was like, I should watch the show to get an idea. And it's like way different than what I thought. Honestly, it's really good.
Are you, every actor, I think 10, 20 years ago, I only want to be in movies. I want to be on the silver screen. Do you see
not
that?
The silver screen.
Maybe we're not in the 40s anymore, but but I feel like, this has been slowly changing the last decade, but people really see the value in TV and streaming series now, where that's like, I can not only be in a decent sized thing, but I can really put my teeth into something that's meaty that I can have a couple chances to develop and come back to. Yeah. Is that something you want to do? That's a commitment.
It's a commitment. I think what's cool about TV is exactly what you're saying, right? Which is the way that you can see, a film, you shoot it over like 20 days, 3, whatever it is, however, depending on your budget.
Yeah.
And then the character's done unless it comes back as a sequel or whatnot, which is, rare. I think with a TV show, it's like you can really, really sink your teeth into kind of this character and the longevity of having that character over the course of X amount of seasons, right? And I think there's so many cool things you can do to develop that character from a writer standpoint or an actor standpoint. And I think a movie is so like bookended. It's like, it's here, it's done, right? So I think that's why actors kind of gravitate towards TV. I definitely want to do both for sure.
Do you have a favorite role you've played?
Ooh, that's good. I think Bowie will be my favorite role. She hasn't happened yet, but when we shoot her, I think she'll be my favorite. She's from Making Estrangements. I think she's just like so flawed and crazy, and then I think she has the biggest arc of someone that I've ever played, from coming from like this kind of nightmare, like partying, unhappy person, all the way to this like person who kind of finds herself in the course of this film. Yeah. So
and you'll be filming that. I think we were talking offline in the fall. Who do you want to see that movie? Like who is that audience for that film?
Oh, like little me, you know what I mean? No, I want anybody who's ever felt like they don't fit in or they don't understand even themselves or no one understands them. I think that will be, a great film for you to see. Anyone who has, family shit, just communicate with them, talk to them, because they're, I think family is so much more. And I've learned this in the last like 5 years myself. I think family is just so much more important than people than people think. So, I think anybody who has family issues, trauma in their past, anybody who's probably hopefully in the LGBTQ community who feels unseen, anyone from Southern places or places where that's not accepted as much, I think that will be something that is, that is important to them as well.
Yeah. So I'm getting the high sign from our engineer off table here. Normally I ask when we win these things to promote yourself, I'll give that yourself a chance to do that. But we haven't had a lot of opportunity to give advice to someone in the LGBTQ community. So if you are actor, director, writer, someone that is in the LGBT community that wants to do what you're doing, is there a specific piece of advice other than just keep going?
Yes. Please make good shit. No, that's part of it. But I think, like what I was saying before, I think if you can, augment stories that haven't been told yet, we are people, we are just people. So all of our stories are just like your stories, we happen to be in the LGBTQ community. So I think, the way to get acceptance and to get more mainstream content in that world is to just make stories that are you. And be honest about your stories, and don't make, a coming out story unless it's a different version of one, or, something. I think we're sick in this community of seeing the standard, you know, boy meets boy, they fall in love, boy is straight. Or you know what I mean? And then so I think that's just a girl, whatever it is, or, you know, non-binary, whoever. And I think, you know, so if you can just augment really fresh, new stories, I think that's something that will really, really help the community as a whole.
I appreciate you sharing that. This is where we wrap things up and let you plug yourself. So where can people find you on the socials?
Ooh. So on the socials, I am, it's very funny, Rue, so R-U Paulson, so R-U-P-A-U-L-S-O-N. That is my my Instagram handle. It's a fun little page, I'll tell you that. So, yeah.
That's the plug. I won't even ask what you post.
Don't even ask. That's it.
And you have a short right now, Fire Fucking Fire.
Yes.
It's playing at Sunscreen, which unfortunately they'll be after this comes out.
You won't be able to see it. You won't be able to see it.
But perhaps at a film festival down the road, people might be able to see it.
Yes, it's going to be at several festivals. I can't release where yet, but stay tuned. It will be there, and then also it's going to be streaming online eventually.
I'm assuming you'll post about that on your social.
We will for sure. Okay. Yeah, so if you follow my social, you'll know exactly where it is and how to see it.
You got Making Estrangements coming up.
Making Estrangements coming up. We're shooting in the fall, so stay tuned. That's going to shoot here, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of
press and media behind that. We'll guarantee that.
Yeah.
And is there anything else you're working on right now?
I'm trying to think what else. I have a couple shorts that I'm going to be acting in, but I really can't, I can't, it's like hush hush things. So I can't say anything yet. Well, but stay tuned for me.
Stay tuned and definitely follow on social. Well, thank you, Rachel, so much for spending 45 minutes with us.
Of course.
Really appreciate it.
This was so fun. I love this.
Thank you. And thank you for coming back to Tampa Bay. We're very excited to have you here. We're excited. We're going to hook you up with Blake. I'm going to make that happen.
Dude,
we're going to figure this out.
Like literally, please. I really would let's do it now or when I'm here in the fall. Like
I will 100% make this happen.
I love this. I love this.
With that, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us. And with that, we'll be right back. Thank you.
Yeah, that was so fun. That was easy.
Welcome back. That was an awesome interview. I really enjoyed that. What were some takeaways?
I loved it. I loved hearing about this story that she is coming back to Tampa to tell. It seems like there's a real degree of authenticity in it. So I'm excited to see how that turns out.
It feels so personal. And when she kept kind of elaborating on it and how it's very LGBTQ plus focused, but how also Tampa is a character in it, I feel like a lot of these story bits that you'll find inside the movie come from her.
Yeah, and I think she mentioned, she didn't go into what exactly, but she said there was some trauma growing up in Tampa Bay, and honestly, who's gotten out of their teens without trauma? No one is the answer to that question. But it feels like this is not only the reconciliation of a brother and sister, but perhaps a reconciliation of her and her past with Tampa Bay. So,
and her relationship with the area.
Yeah.
So.
What are some else little gems you took away from that?
I really liked the advice that she had for actors. It seemed a little cliche, she said, but don't give up. I think that people do need to hear that, and she seems super vibrant and tenacious herself. So I think that hearing that from somebody like a spokesperson like that is really encouraging.
It is a profession that's going to grind you down. And I liked her mentioning, even though it's a little depressing, but this is an industry where you can be doing it for 10 years and have no upward mobility or lateral mobility. Like this is what you're doing. This is what you are.
Yeah.
Because no matter how talented you are, there still has to be that opportunity that gives you that next break.
The timing. It's all
about timing. And sometimes that happens right away. Sometimes people grind it out for years. But I think if you don't give up, like she suggested, it is an industry that will reward you at some point. Like,
right.
The universe will give you your break.
Yeah.
It just might take longer than you hope.
Yeah.
Well, and it seems like the industry is finally rewarding different types of stories. One of the things that she talked about that I loved was that it's not just about like gay stories and making queer media for queer people, but actually finding just regular characters that happen to be gay in these other stories.
Yeah.
I thought that was an
and
exciting
normalizing it. I think is a good term to use, and putting gay characters in stories that resonate with everybody because it's at the core emotion.
I think she said it exactly. If we're at a moment in time where it is normalized to be part of the LGBTQ community, then tell a story where it's normalized within it.
Exactly.
Don't make it that thing that purple elephant in the room. And I feel like that I mentioned it in the conversation, but I feel like a lot of niche genres, whether that's African American or faith-based religious films, they're making films for themselves, which is fine, but you're not broadening the umbrella or the tent to allow other people in,
Or
right?
teaching and educating
Yes.
people about what that should be. You're just, like she said, preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I really found that conversation interesting. We really haven't had a representative of the LGBTQ community, as far as I can remember. Not that we've ever made that part of the podcast.
No,
or
I think
asked
she's the
specifically,
first.
but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed her comments. I think that's something,
Yeah.
and I meant it when I said it. Like, the film industry consistently rates at the bottom of the list on LGBTQ friendly professions, which I think is shocking and surprising to a lot of people when they learn that. But year after year, we're always at the bottom of that list.
Yeah.
And sets are notoriously not friendly towards the LGBTQ community, and there's not a lot of content, certainly not enough that's representative of the actual population, and it's something that needs to be changed.
Yeah. It's very different than theater, where I think theater is a little bit different. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the statistics in theater itself, but I know that film can do a lot better in a lot of categories.
So an example that comes to my mind is like Indiana Jones wasn't made for just, archaeologists, right? They really they taught you a little bit about archaeology.
Yeah, but
through that.
but how many archaeologists are working today because they saw Indiana Jones and were like,
Exactly.
I
They were
want to do
inspired.
that.
So that brings me to my question to you guys. Rachel sort of touched on this and you guys touched on it in your conversation, but I want to know from you, was there something that you watched when you were younger that was impressionable towards you, that maybe didn't inspire you to have the career that you now have in film, but maybe the example that I had was if you saw Flipper and then you wanted to be a marine biologist, or if you saw Pirates of the Caribbean and you wanted to be a pirate. I mean, I don't know your lives, but I just had that question. I'll start with you, Tyler. Was there something that you watched or a series?
I love Westerns. It was probably The Searchers or She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. One of those two, I'm pretty sure. Probably The Searchers. Or it's like, I just want to be a badass in a duster and a cowboy hat and boots and go around.
Did you
on a
pursue
horse.
that? Or is it just kind of like now part of you?
It's really hard to be a cowboy in the 21st century or even the 20th century. In fact, I probably would have had to gone back another 100 years, but not that there's not cowboys out there, but not John Wayne cowboys. That's a little different. No, I knew that was a pipe dream.
Yeah. So now you just wear cowboy boots every day.
Every single day.
Because you're keeping the dream
Yes.
alive.
and hurting my feet at the same time, but it's for a reason.
Like she said, don't give up.
Don't give up.
Yes, don't give up.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Keep that tenacity.
What about you, Hillary?
Yeah, what about you, Hillary?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I feel like I was always fascinated with the art and craft of filmmaking and acting, and even, I don't know, I always wanted to like make movies and make them happen.
Was there a movie that inspired? There's like movies about movies. Like Singing in the Rain did that for me a little bit because it was like such a farce, but it was kind of
or The Player. That's a great one.
Oh my gosh, that is an incredible movie.
Except
Meyer made us watch that in every class.
Except it shows you what not to do and how terrible Hollywood is.
No, but I grew up watching the like behind the scenes featurettes on the Lord of the Rings DVDs. So that's where I think my first passion for like film specifically and not just theater came from. It was like watching those. I'm like, oh, this is their job. They're doing this all day long. Like, that's what I want to do.
They get paid to talk about what I want to talk about. It's so great. For me, it was the Travel Channel, which I know isn't technically like a film, but it was Anthony Bourdain and it was, Coaster Wars. And my career kind of follows that a little bit. I used to work for Busch Gardens and Laurie Park Zoo and a lot of tourism destinations. But I was originally a journalism major. And that is because
I thought you were going to tell us you wanted to go around and try really strange food.
That too. And I follow Stanley Tucci for that same allure now because he has a show now all about food, but it was just like that travel.
Doesn't he just drink a lot of wine and like
and he cooks Italian food.
Yeah.
When I tell you, I love him so much. Like that's if I could meet anybody famous.
Jesse, don't go to his house.
I won't be outside your house, Stanley Tucci. I'm not, yeah. But I did read his book and his book is amazing. It's basically 3 parts. It's his story of his life, and then it's actual recipes, like Italian recipes, which I've tried a few and they're really, really good. And then a really cool part of his book, the 3rd part, is that he talks about different sets that he's worked on in his film career and which set had the best food and which had the worst food.
Oh, who had the worst food?
Norway.
Norway had the worst.
Really?
I can
Okay.
confirm that. Not that I was on a set in Norway, but I have been to Norway. I've been to.
Spoiler alert for the book, but yeah.
It is really bad food.
Yeah.
It's very fishy. It's very like sauce heavy, but not like an Italian sauce heavy. It's just like we just put gravy on everything. And I think it's because the weather is very cold and they just got to bulk up.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
My palate leans more towards the Italian recipes for sure.
yeah.
I like pasta.
Very, very fishy food.
Yeah.
Not a fan. Okay, with that, what else do we have in our docket here?
Well, Stanley Tucci's my person who I would love to meet. Do you guys have somebody that you have met like in your career or someone that you would love to meet or work with? I know Hillary just attended, I think it was Sundance, and you got to see a panel with Jason Schwartzman. And I commented, I was like, other than Stanley Tucci, he's like the only other person who I've heard just such cool things about, that he's really approachable and really kind and so smart. And I was like so jealous.
I literally like bumped into him. I looked up and I was like, oh. And I kept walking. But I was so excited. Robert Smigel was there. So I was like super thrilled about that.
Yeah.
I feel like if you work for film festivals, you get the chance to meet so many amazing people. So like I've had so many cool like encounters.
Yeah.
But the one that I would love to have would be Michael J. Fox. That would be like the most meaningful for me.
Wow.
Am I confusing this year with last year? When was the Michael J. Fox documentary?
That was last year.
That was last year. Okay. Yeah, I saw that. I cried. I love that. He's just one of those actors that just seems like just a good human being.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good dude.
Yeah.
I've read all of his books. I've seen everything that he's been in.
And Back to the Future is your favorite movie of all time, right? Yeah. Fun fact.
So I will not say who this actor was, but I was in the audience and he was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. He's a Western actor. There's been a lot of Westerns anyway. And he came out on set or on stage to accept his award, and everyone was thinking he's going to give a speech or something, and instead he was so drunk. He sort of stumbled out on the stage, grabbed the award, and then talked about his cowboy boots and how they were made by this old Mexican man in like right outside of Tijuana or something like that, and he went on for like 20 minutes talking about these boots, just rambling, and no one knew what to do. Like you can't, get the hook and pull him off the stage when it's the Lifetime Achievement Award. And literally this entire night was built around him. So we were like being held at gunpoint. I mean, it's like, do we leave? What's going on? And finally he just sort of stopped and wandered off the stage. It's like, oh,
You're telling me you didn't enjoy that?
what?
Him monologuing about his
loved
cowboy
it.
boots? I knew you loved it.
I loved it, but for all the wrong reasons. I was like, this is a train wreck. Where's the popcorn?
I can't look away.
Yeah, and I won't say who it is, but
that's
people might be
probably
able
for
to
the
guess.
best,
But it wasn't John Wayne. He's been dead for a long time. But yeah.
Someone with really cool cowboy boots. Though.
Really cool cowboy
That's the
boots.
giveaway.
Yeah. Handmade. I was like, ooh, I want to find your cobbler. Is that what the right word is? Yeah, they make shoes. They make boots? I don't know. A bootier. I don't know. I think that's a word, actually. I don't know. We'll figure that. Where are we? Please end this train wreck. Where are we going
back to
next?
Rachel
Yeah,
Paulson.
thank you.
Yes, please keep a lookout. We'll be posting on our social while she's in town this fall, 2024, making Estrangements. She's doing a lot of locations here in the Tampa Bay area, working with some local filmmakers and producers as well. So keeping it local. Please follow her at Rue Paulson on Instagram. And yeah. That's it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to close this episode out. Miss Brock, where can they find more about us?
We are Loose Framing Podcast. Stream us anywhere you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow at Film Tampa Bay.
And with that, we'll see you next time.